All right. Welcome to Real Estate Hustlers Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Appelman, founder and CEO of Appelman Properties. Today, we're joined with Jay. Jay is a tech consultant turned business leader with 10 plus years in cyber risk consulting for Fortune 100 clients, holds a BS and comp science, Texas A&M, and MS in info systems, University of Cincinnati. Passionate about real estate investing as a founder of Compounding Capital Group, stabilizing and repositioning apartments in Cincinnati. Jay, we're excited to have you here today. We've been wanting to connect for a long time on this podcast. If you could let the audience know a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Josh. Pleasure to be here. This is Jay Balekar. I'm based in Cincinnati as well, so same as you, Josh. Love this city. Moved here in 2011 for grad school and just fell in love with the culture, the weather. The weather's not as bad as Wisconsin or some of the other northern parts of the country. And the cost of living is great. And there is hospitality. So that's what I love about this place. Started investing in real estate in late 2019, early 2020, really. The way it all started was I had a travel job at the time. I was working for Deloitte & Touche, which is a consulting accounting firm. And I was traveling Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday, mostly to East Coast. And while I was traveling, I was reading some of these real estate books. I was never a fiction reader, so I wanted to read something that I can learn from. And I was like, okay, let's start investing in real estate because I needed to make good use of my money. So that's how it all started. Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad the second time. I had read it as a teenager and remembered it being a phenomenal book on financial education. And that book, when I reread it, got me thinking again that, hey, I need to start looking at everything that I have in terms of assets and liabilities. And how I'm increasing my assets and getting my liabilities down, and maybe eventually have the assets pay for the liabilities, right? That was the whole point. Then I read the cash flow quadrant, and that book again was a change in perspective that as an employee, I'm running on a treadmill and I'm paying most of the taxes while, if you're an entrepreneur or self-employed, your cash tax liabilities go down a little bit, but at the same time, you're building assets, right? So you're not so much running on the treadmill. And at some point, you can actually earn that freedom of time. That's truly the goal for me, at least. So that's how it all started. Then I started reading all these real estate books, Bigger Pockets and Ken McElroy, all the OGs in real estate, Joe Fairless. And I was like, man, this thing could really work. Got to learn about the BRRRR strategy, the cash out refi. And I was like, man, this stuff is really cool. And I always had an inclination towards some sort of like interior design, architecture, something creative. I've always enjoyed that. But my technical training, professional training was all in engineering. So I didn't get a chance to really apply that creative side of my mind. And I was like, oh, this could be an avenue where I can actually apply the creative thinking that I have. So that's when me and my wife invested in 2 4-families here in Cincinnati in Norwood, but very close to Rookwood Mall, which is a pretty big mall here. One of the malls that's not struggling. It's a great location. Yeah, great location. But I paid retail price for it. It was right there on MLS. Fixed the property up. It was in really, really bad shape. Way worse than I had anticipated. And obviously with no background in real estate, I had no idea how much to spend. So my budget at the time was 70 grand just to fix up the interiors. But then as I started working on the property, I find out, oh, it's knob and tube wiring. You got to change that. That itself is 20 grand. Oh, there goes my budget, right? So we ended up spending 230K on that property. But I'm glad that I did because I fixed up everything in one go, rather than trying to fix up a little bit now and a little bit during turnovers. It would be even more a nightmare. So fixed up everything. Thankfully, I had a large enough HELOC on my personal property to continue to fund the overage that we had. And because of the location—
You went all in then.
I went pretty much all in.
You were committed 100%. There was no turning back. You leveraged your assets.
Correct. I leveraged my personal home and there was no turning back because sure, one option could have been, man, this is turning out to be a lot more than I can handle and just offload the property. But offloading the property halfway would mean taking some losses. And that was not an option. I just wanted to see it through. And because it was all funded using my capital, even if I made money after 2 years, I was okay with it. Even if I
Yeah.
lost money for the first 2 years, it's fine. You learn through the process. The learning is worth something. So I learned a lot through that entire renovation process, because we had to change all the electrical, plumbing, HVAC, floors, plaster walls, you name it. And the roof set collapsed. So new roofs, new exteriors, all the trim work, all of that, asphalt work.
Yeah.
So in that one project, I got to know everything about the exteriors, interiors, the mechanicals. It
What
was a
was your
huge learning.
experience before? Because and I don't mean to cut you off, but this is good
Sure.
stuff. So what was your experience going in with construction knowledge, and then like before you started everything?
Zero experience, like DIY stuff like staining my own deck and laying some LVT flooring in my house. But that's like very basic, as opposed to, and when you're staining your own deck or laying LVT floors, you're not thinking ROI. It's your home. You're picking the best LVT floor there is you can buy,
Sure.
and you take a month to lay it down. You can't do that in an investment property. Time is money.
Yeah.
Materials you cannot overspend. Decorations you cannot overspend. You have to make sure that you're thinking in terms of ROI all the time. So it was definitely a huge learning experience for me.
Do you feel like now I know your experience now, and we'll let the listeners know here in a minute, but now you're very much more knowledgeable. Do you feel like there were costs that you could have cut from your initial investment thinking back now, or do you feel like you still would have been doing the same exact thing with same pricing points?
Thankfully, during that first project, for every little thing, I got like 7 to 8 bids. And not only
Nice.
those contractors would give me prices, but they would give me ideas too. They'd be
Nice.
like, hey, you know what, man? You don't need to do all new brickwork. Just do tuck pointing. Hey, and then I was trying to restore the chimney we had. And one of the contractors gave me an idea that, why are you restoring this chimney? What is it even being used for? Knock it down and just get the side vent water heaters. And those
Nice.
side vented water heaters were like $4,000, as opposed to rebuilding the chimney for 20 grand.
Wow.
So
That's extremely smart. You've got multiple bids, and then you are also reading in between lines of each contractor to the next one.
Exactly.
That's huge. I think the listeners need to know that, because if they're going in and rehabbing, get multiple bids, and
Yep.
don't put all your faith into just one. That's one point of view. Cool.
Exactly.
I'll let you go on. That's awesome.
No, I think the more people you talk to, the more you learn. And over time, the more you have learned and continue to talk to more people, you can give back too, right? So that's why, I mean, I wish I had a little bit more free time as I used to have when I was starting out. But these meetups and conferences, they are crucial, because that's where you get to learn, you get to connect, network, and even potentially give back, right? So there was a lot of learnings from the contractors, but also I was going to, the first time you and I met, Josh, was at a local Joe Fairless meetup, the best ever
Correct.
meetup, right?
Yeah.
And you learn a lot in these social circles, and that's how you meet people, like I met you.
Yeah.
So
Well, and you see what others are doing. It's kind of like the insiders. You see what others are doing, how they're what they're working on, and where they're heading. And if you gain just one nugget off going to a meetup, I mean, that could change the trajectory of your business plan going forward too.
Absolutely,
It's
100%.
huge.
Absolutely, yep.
So you got you got 2 4 units. So you've got 8 units. You were the biggest liability, and you wanted to make sure you could do it first before bringing on any partners, any investors. You wanted to prove it to yourself. So I did the same thing. So I know exactly where you're at. What was the next? You knew it works. What was the next step? What was the next? Because you've grown a bigger business now, much bigger.
Yeah, the next step, the way it slowly grew, and by no means are we massive with 1,000 doors, thousands of doors. And that's actually honestly not even our goal. And I'll get to that in a minute, because everyone has different goals. But immediately after the 8 units, we did another 10 units. Now 10 units is truly a commercial asset, as opposed to 2 4 families, which are still residential. So after we fixed up those 2 4 families, they were cash flowing great, but they were still appraised using comps-based approach. Yeah. Right. So although our rents went from 450 to 1,000 on those 4 families,
wow, that's incredible,
which was a huge rent bump, cash flow was looking great. The appraisals still came in at, I think about 350 a piece, so 700. So I was able to do a cash out refi, but I had a little bit of money still left in the deal. So it was not a full infinite return. But we did a cash out refi on that same deal again after a year. And this time they appraised at 450 a piece, and we were able to completely pull all our equity out.
Nice.
So at this time, it's an infinite return deal with positive cash flow, and I still self-manage that property. The 10 unit that we did after that, the reason we did 2-4 families first was because banks usually would not give you a loan on a commercial asset unless you have some experience. So, but residential was just based on our credit. So we got the residential loans pretty easy. But now that we had these 2-4 families done, now we got a loan for the 10 unit commercial property. And now same story, rinse and repeat, renovated everything. This was in Walnut Hills, bought for 470K. And then after we were all done, appraised at 1.4 million. So that was our second huge home run deal that gave us a massive liquidity injection after the cash out refi. But
Nice.
those days are kind of gone, right? With the interest rates that have gone up quite a bit, the appraisals are coming in low.
Yeah.
So we were trying to do those cash out refis, and people who've done this for the last 10 years have done really well through those cash out refis. We got a little bit of a scoop of that last 3-4 years.
Yeah, we came on a tail end.
Pretty much on the tail end. But now many of the similar projects we are doing now, which is anywhere between 12 units to 36, 40 units, that range, mid-size multifamily, we are hanging on with more equity in our deals and enjoying those cash flows rather than doing a cash out refi, going from 4% rate of interest to 7 or 8, which we are seeing now. So definitely the velocity of capital has definitely slowed down. But it's also, in my mind, a good time to focus on operations and building your business, focusing on your processes rather than being greedy and buying more. So we have become extremely selective on where we buy. We've been pretty selective on where we buy, but even what we buy, how much we buy, we have been very selective. And from the get-go, my goal was never to raise too much capital because, like I said, the goal for me is freedom of time and peace of mind. So if you have enough financial security to truly enjoy that peace of mind and freedom of time, I'm a happy man. I don't want to rack up 8,000 units by raising $1 billion. And now something shifts in economy and I'm losing my sleep over it, that I have this $1 billion that I've raised from investors. How do I make this work, right?
Well, Jay, we just skipped a light year ahead, though. We went from 10 units and now you're raising capital. I want to hear.
Yes.
I want to hear, at what point in time did you know that it's time? I want to invite some partners in to enjoy this with me, and they can bring capital and we can provide the asset management, property management, renovation management. At what point in time did you feel like it's the right time to start doing this?
This was after a good solid 2 years. So in those 2 years, we built a portfolio of close to 100 units, out of which about 35 to 40 units were my own, me and my wife.
Nice.
So initially, those 35 to 40 units that we built was purely our capital at risk and our sweat equity. And so after that was done, we had built somewhat of a track record to show that we have repositioned about 5 properties, 40 doors, to start raising capital. The other reason for starting to raise capital was we were out of our own capital. And we realized that cash out refis, that whole end-to-end timeline, it takes a year and a half, right? So your capital is locked up and your velocity of capital is kind of relatively low. But if you can raise capital, then you can do more deals and expedite that churn, if you will. So that was the goal. And then we started working with our friends and family, really people who we truly knew. And before even we raised any capital, we first walked them through what could potentially go wrong before even we started talking about what could go right. Like, yes, this is, by the end of the day, still an investment. You could still lose money. But then the chances of you losing your money are low because of A, B, C, D, right? All the reasons why real estate is such a wonderful asset. And but these were the people that we already knew, and they already trusted us. You know, they knew us as people, as human beings. So they were willing to partner with us. And these were also some of the people that we formed relationships with through all these mastermind programs, right? Real estate groups. And we'd known them for over a year now, and I knew them, they knew us, and these were all done as small JV deals. So it was more intimate, where everybody was talking to each other on a weekly basis, rather than a large group where people don't know each other. So
Yeah, that's huge. And my edge is always trust is built on performance. If you're going to perform, you will naturally get trust of others. And you took
absolutely.
from being the biggest liability in the room yourself by not having any experience, putting your neck
Mhm.
out of line, leveraging your personal asset, going all in to building a portfolio of over 40 units. And now you've got the trust in yourself and
Mhm.
the wherewithal to invite other people in. And that's huge. If you've got the experience and going through the motions of starting small and building it up, your confidence grows with you and your competence. And then
Absolutely.
you're no longer the biggest liability. You can bring others in, and I love that story. It's great. And not to mention your background, Jay. I mean, you go from a professional environment, a very solid, steady job career, to just saying I'm done with this. Tell us a little bit about that. What was that? What was the mindset shift in getting out of that environment?
Yeah, honestly, I loved my job. I love consulting because the whole job was solving problems for Fortune 100 clients, right? And with any business, if you're an entrepreneur, that's exactly what you're doing too, solving problems every day. So that's what I was doing for our clients, which is why I loved it. But it came to a point where we were buying real estate assets, and real estate or any business, nothing is passive in life. Everything is active. You have to put
100.
in the work,
Yeah.
money is not just going to double up while you sleep. Someone has to work. Sure, you can have passive investors, but there has to be an operator who is giving their 100% to the asset and
Yeah.
to the operations. So being an operator, I was dedicating a lot of time and energy for stabilization and then the operations of these assets. So it came to a point when, especially when we had crossed that about 250 to 300 door threshold, I was at a point where I could see myself either doing justice to my employer or to my investors. And I didn't want to drop the ball on either side. I wanted to make sure my investors are always taken care of, and I'm not ignoring the assets that they're investing their capital in. And at the same time, I wanted to make sure that if my employer is paying me six figures, I can drop the ball there. And if I do leave, I wanted to leave on good terms rather than getting kicked out. So I had come to that point and that realization. And then the cash flow was from my real estate investments was at a point where I could survive on cash flow. It was by no means making me rich, but it was enough to pay the bills. So I was like, okay, let's take a chance on ourselves and let's make this decision. My wife still has her W-2. So now I can offset her tax liability using the real estate professional status as well, which
Nice.
is a benefit. We don't see a huge chunk of money that just goes away from the paycheck every year. We don't see that. So that's an additional savings. So all of these different factors came together. And finally, you just have to take the plunge, because if I didn't do it, I would have regrets of not taking a shot down the road when my responsibilities would be a lot higher. And taking this step and jumping in would be even more difficult than doing it now when we are still, I would say, not young, but younger in our
Yeah.
early 30s, and we don't have any kids yet. And that helps make that decision, because if you have more responsibilities, it's you got to think about all of those things before you
Yeah. You're
make a big
constantly
decision. Yeah,
recalculating, and then you've
yeah,
got the little rugrats running in on you on meetings, and
yeah.
it's joyful having kids for sure, but you definitely have an upper advantage when and
Yeah,
going to masterminds and meetups and meetings, and that all is extremely disruptive to anyone's life. And I say disruptive
yeah,
because you're booking plane tickets, you're showing up for 3 to 4 days at events, you're taking time out of family time, and it is
yeah.
extremely important though to get in the room in real estate, because relationships are everything in real estate. The more people you know, the more people that know you, it can truly change the how far your business can go. Tell us a little bit about that, Jay, because I know that you're in your masterminds, you're in groups, you educate, you teach. Tell us a little bit on that front.
On education, Josh?
Just as a whole, you're in masterminds, you're teaching as a whole,
Mhm.
how it's helped your business and where you want to go
Yeah,
with it.
yeah, absolutely. It's really, real estate truly is a team sport. I would say that actually any business for that matter is truly a team sport. And life in general is a team sport. People who work with a team do better in life, period, right? And I got a better realization for it, especially through real estate. So when we started the journey, yes, I was learning through books and stuff like that, but the journey was definitely accelerated after I joined a mastermind. So I'm in Marco Barbero and Hadar Orkibi's MIH mastermind. So Marco is Gino Barbero's brother from Jake and Gino.
Yeah.
That's also a very big network. I was looking into Rod Cleave's program. There's so many different groups, but I wanted to join a mastermind where we are working on building relationships and taking down mid-sized assets first as JVs and making sure the deals we are doing feel more like family, feel like small transactions done within a family, generational wealth building assets, right? Not something massive. Because I do agree that when you go big, there's more zeros, but the work stays the same. There's more zeros to your profits, but there's also more zeros to your mistakes.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe in getting good experience and good learning and good education and building a good team and a good network before trying to go after really large money and raising large capital. That's my belief. So I was a part of that mastermind. I graduated. I was also part of Vinny Chopra's program and learned a lot from Vinny, not just about multifamily, but just from his personality. He's such a go-giver, a very positive person. And I learned a lot from Vinny on that. Very high energy. So I think in general that education, but also the personality, how people are connecting with each other, how people are taking deals down together, how people are filling in different roles, one person being an asset manager, a few people helping with capital raising. I saw all of that after I was part of these masterminds, because otherwise, as an outsider from books, it's very difficult to get that inside view. And the other biggest benefit of joining any educational program is you meet other like-minded people who then eventually become your partners in deals or business partners, right? And Jason, who is my business partner, he works on the underwriting and helps me with asset management. And then now Alex Sam, who's a part of our team, and he's helping a lot with marketing, brand building, and also capital raising. We've met through these mastermind programs. That's where I've met these people, which would be impossible for me to meet them because they don't live in Cincinnati and they're not engineers. And my network before real estate was all engineers, people doing cybersecurity work, or people living in Cincinnati, right? So definitely education and mastermind programs was a game changer.
And you're in the room with all like-minded people and individuals. And it's amazing to me. It's very cool that everyone in real estate loves personal development. They just consume information. There's no TV time. If the TV goes away now, it's
absolutely.
And there's still not enough time in the day to consume more content on investing, on waterfalls, on distributions, on just there's so much to learn, and there's not enough time. And that's where you have to put great people in front of you as well to help pillar the operation, because experience is everything. It's in learning how these things are structured behind the scenes, is there's not videos out there. You can't find a video on how a waterfall or how a general partnership is truly structured by percentages. You've got to get in the room with these other groups, and then you've got essentially power by numbers. You've got a lot of people that want the same thing, same goals, and you can do some great things.
Absolutely.
I totally 100% agree with you on buying small, getting a small select group of people together, and everyone benefiting from that asset acquisition. These the big properties, big capital raises, those returns take incredibly long to circle back. If you've got a 250, 300 unit asset and every one of those units needs to be renovated, the motions it takes to go through the entire CapEx and just to do a full cycle, I mean, you're 3 to 5+ years, and then cash flowing along the way. By the time cash flow is dispersed, and you could be making even more on a smaller deal on a personal level than taking down a huge asset with a lot of people. It's
Right. True, and the market is changing as well a little bit, and I think the last 10 years was an incredible time. Even if you took a little bit of a risk and a chance and went from 10 units to buying a 200 unit and made a couple of mistakes, but mostly did right by investors, those mistakes would be covered up due to the market being on
Yeah.
your side. But now that the market is changing, even the smallest mistake, you're going to be paying for it, and your investors are going to be paying for it. So I think it's time to be extremely cautious. Nothing wrong with large deals. I mean, we were trying to find large deals, but we
Yeah.
were just not finding them at a price that was acceptable for us. So, it was just being sold at pro forma, not even between actuals and pro forma, but at pro forma. So again, I mean, I would like to clarify that nothing wrong with larger deals and raising more capital, as long as the quality of deal is there, I think, and the experience. So definitely need to be careful with the changing times now. So.
I'm glad you said that. As long as it pencils out, because that I think that's the what I've got against all these. The larger deals, the brokers are selling based on performance. The seller's mindset is sell on a future value, because the property down the road is achieving higher rents because they went through the renovations. But yeah, there's definitely economies of scale with larger properties, and the zeros are greater for sure. So Jay, how many units is in your portfolio now, and where are you heading?
Currently, we have a little over 500 units in our portfolio, which includes our co-GP deals. Our personal portfolio as lead sponsor, we are around 300. We continue to buy like these mid-sized deals in the $3 to $5 million range, because those are the deals that we can even fund using a small balance agency loan, or really even a local bank.
Yeah.
Why I say that? Because I like to stay away from floating interest rate bridge debt. And that bridge debt is going to cause a lot of heartache to a lot of people. We are already seeing that. So I like to stay away from bridge debt, which is why we like to stay with local banks and in that size range, or larger unit if it qualifies for agency day one. Right now, we are more so than ever trying to stay away from floating interest rate bridge debt. The goal is to continue to acquire, but acquisitions sustainably is really the goal, which is why we don't truly have a door count goal. If we find 3 properties in a month, which are home run deals, we'll try to close on all 3. But if a year goes by and none of the deals meet our criteria, we'll sit on the sideline for a year and not buy a single deal.
Yeah.
I do feel like buying good deals that make a lot of sense to you and your investors, rather than buying more deals, makes more sense. And I think all the people who've been in real estate and survived multiple market cycles in 2008, that's what I've learned watching their journey, is they've had the discipline to stay out of market when times were tricky.
Yeah. They buy conservative and keep what you buy. That's the biggest piece. There's a perfect storm for sure coming. There's a lot of interest only loans out there that are getting ready to start amortizing. Bridge debt, loans coming due. You've got the commercial sector, that office space that is there's a lot of things happening. It's going to be a very interesting, I feel like, fourth quarter this year, and then going into next year, who knows? It's a lot of things have happened in the past 2 years that are going to come and haunt many groups. But very cool.
Absolutely.
Jay, very, very good to have you on the show. If somebody wants to learn more about you and reach out, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, our website is compoundingcapitalgroup.com, all one word, and that's compounding with an ing. Or they can look me up on Facebook. I'm pretty quick in my responses on Facebook. And they can also follow us on LinkedIn or Instagram, same name, Compounding Capital Group.
Awesome.
And I can also put in my phone number. If anyone wants to shoot me a text, they can hop on a call with me. Jumping on a call with people is one of the things that I truly enjoy, getting to know new people. So my phone number is 513-376-3884. That's 513-376-3884.
Awesome. And then we'll have your information when we repost this episode as well. And Jay, truly appreciate your time. Love the journey and look forward to talking to you here soon.
Thank you, Josh. It
All
was
right.
truly a pleasure.